Start mid-crisis, drop viewer into immediate danger or chaos. Use sensory details, sounds, smells, movement. Examples: gunfire, metal tearing, boots in mud, radios crackling, panicked breaths, distant artillery. Introduce a mystery question within first 4 to 7 seconds. Example: no one realized the shadowy figure would change everything. Retention cue, end step with a micro cliffhanger to force continuation, and then something impossible happened. Asterisk location, time frame, key characters. Explain why the event matters. What's at risk? Cities, troops, secrets, civilians. Optional. Use visual aids, maps, diagrams for context. Retention cue. In step, hinting at unseen danger, but no one realized the real threat hadn't even appeared yet. Asterisk. The moment everything changes, comes without warning. A sudden, sharp flare lights up the night sky, illuminating the trees, the mud, the tense faces of soldiers frozen in place. Somewhere in the distance, a coded radio transmission buzzes through the static. Her name is mentioned explicitly, and it sends a shiver down the spine of every officer listening. No one expected this. The enemy seems to know her mission before she even leaves the camp. Instantly, stakes escalate. Her task was supposed to be routine: deliver a critical message to a nearby command post. But now, with patrols closing in faster than intelligence predicted, every step forward becomes a calculated risk. The forest around her seems alive with danger. Shadows shift unnaturally. Branches snap, and distant artillery fire echoes closer than it should. Every second is a life or death gamble. She presses forward, clinging to the envelope, the weight of responsibility heavier than the pack on her back. The radio crackles again with static-laced voices, hinting at betrayals she cannot yet see. She glances over her shoulder. No one is there, but the whisper of movement suggests someone is tracking her. It's unseen but relentless. The seed of a mystery is planted. Who sent the message that mentioned her specifically? Why was she singled out? And how much of this danger is orchestrated, and how much is mere chaos? And the next 90 seconds would determine whether anyone survived. Asterisk. The forest seemed to close in around her. A labyrinth of shadows and fog, every rustle of leaves a potential threat. The mud sucked at her boots with each hurried step, slowing her progress. While the smell of smoke and gunpowder burned in her nostrils, she could hear the distant roar of artillery, each blast shaking the earth beneath her, as if the world itself were trembling. Radios in the distance crackled intermittently, voices distorted by static, giving fractured commands no one could fully trust. She pressed the envelope to her chest, feeling the weight of lives resting upon her mission. But nothing was going according to plan. A patrol appeared seemingly out of nowhere, moving faster than intelligence had predicted. She ducked behind a fallen tree as bullets splintered the bark around her. The forest was no longer a protective cover. It had become a trap. Meanwhile, in the command room, hundreds of miles away, maps were spread across tables, officers leaning over them, eyes darting as reports came in. Communications were failing, radios jammed, messengers delayed. Every update contradicted the last. A commander slammed his fist on the table. She should be there by now. What's taking her so long? No one could answer. Reinforcements were moving in the wrong direction, misled by outdated coordinates. Panic began to ripple through the ranks. Back on the ground, she stumbled across a makeshift barricade, now abandoned. The remnants of a skirmish evident in broken rifles and discarded helmets. The stench of blood hung thick in the air. She forced herself to breathe through the panic, scanning every shadow, every movement. Each step became a calculated risk. One wrong move, and she would never deliver the message. Suddenly, a figure appeared in the mist, a soldier, but not one of her own. He was alone, moving with the cautious precision of someone used to hunting rather than being hunted. Their eyes met for a split second, and instinct screamed at her to run. But curiosity, a dangerous curiosity, made her pause. The man whispered something she couldn't hear over the gunfire, then disappeared into the fog. Questions raced through her mind. Was he friend or foe? And what did he know about the message she carried? Time began to blur. Every step forward seemed to stretch into eternity. She could hear the pounding of her heart, the ragged rhythm of her own breathing echoing louder than the distant artillery. Each shadow seemed to hold a secret, each sound a threat. She crawled through mud and undergrowth, sometimes on all fours, sometimes running, always alert. Back at the command center, reports were coming in from multiple sources, none of them aligning. "We've lost visual on the courier," one radio operator shouted. Another reported enemy sightings near the intended rendezvous point. A third mentioned possible sabotage along the supply lines. Officers argued, shouting over one another, trying to piece together a picture that was rapidly dissolving into chaos. Every miscommunication, every delay, compounded the danger she faced alone in the forest. Meanwhile, she reached a narrow ravine, a natural choke point. Her only path forward was exposed. Enemy patrols had set traps here, tripwires, hidden landmines, snipers. Her heart pounded as she crept along the edge, testing the ground with each careful step. A misstep could mean death. She froze when she heard a faint whistle, the sound eerily human, yet mechanical, like a warning. She looked around frantically, eyes scanning for the source. But all she saw was fog, mud, and twisted trees. Every few seconds, micro-teases of danger teased the edge of her awareness. A shadow flickered. A sound behind her made her spin, but nothing. She pressed on, adrenaline sharpening her senses. Her fingers were raw, scraped against bark and stone. Her lungs burned with exertion. Every instinct screamed that she was being watched, that someone or something was always one step ahead. The chaos intensified when distant explosions shook the ground, dislodging debris, sending small animals fleeing. In the darkness, she glimpsed a small clearing ahead, where moonlight revealed the outline of what appeared to be an abandoned command post. It could be a lifeline or a trap. With no other options, she raced forward, hoping to find a working radio or some clue about the message she carried. And yet, something bigger was coming, she realized, a sinking feeling twisting in her gut. This wasn't just an enemy patrol. This wasn't just miscommunication or bad luck. There was a force moving in the shadows, invisible, strategic, and utterly unpredictable. She couldn't see it, couldn't name it, but she felt its presence with every step. Every choice she made from now on would determine not just her fate, but the fate of those who were waiting on the other side of her mission. But this wasn't the real problem. The forest clearing she had reached offered no relief, only a brief pause before the storm intensified. Moonlight revealed the twisted wreckage of an abandoned command post. Broken radios, scattered papers fluttering in the wind. She dared a glance at the envelope, her fingers trembling. The message she carried could decide the outcome of a battle. Yet in her hands it felt unbearably fragile, like the weight of the world condensed into a single piece of paper. Suddenly, a gunshot cracked the night. She dropped low, sliding behind a pile of debris, heart hammering. Shadows moved among the trees. Enemy patrols were converging from multiple directions, faster, smarter, more coordinated than before. She realized she was walking into a trap. Yet no alternative remained. Delivering the message was her only choice. Every hesitation could mean death. Her mind raced through impossible calculations. Should she split from the path, risk getting lost and hope for a blind spot? Or stay on course and chance an encounter with the enemy? Her decision was made in an instant move forward, no matter the cost. She dashed across open ground, bullets whipping past, some striking the earth inches from her feet. The roar of artillery grew louder, shaking the ground beneath her like a living beast. Nearby, a fallen comrade's body lay half-hidden in mud. A brief flicker of grief threatened to paralyze her, but she forced herself onward. The forest seemed to shift around her, a maze designed to confuse and disorient. Every branch snapped underfoot, every rustle of leaves a potential death sentence. Her boots were caked in blood and mud, her uniform torn, yet she pressed on. Driven by a sense of duty, no fear could overcome. At the same time, in the distant command center, officers watched as the chaos unfolded on intercepted reports. Maps were overlaid with blinking icons marking movements, friendly units scattered, enemy patrols converging. The courier's path unknown. She's moving alone, one officer muttered, voice barely audible over static. Alone, and still ahead of them. Frustration and fear painted every face. They knew she had the potential to change everything, or to disappear entirely. Back in the field, she came upon a small river, the water cold and biting. A makeshift bridge lay broken, forcing her to wade through the icy current. Every splash seemed deafening in the still night. She clutched the envelope above the water, praying it would not fall. Across the river, shadows shifted again, enemy soldiers, positioned like predators, waiting for her misstep. She froze, calculating every possible outcome, heart racing in sync with the distant drumbeat of artillery. A sudden flare illuminated the riverbank. One of the enemy soldiers spotted her. Instinct and training took over. She dove into the underbrush, bullets ricocheting off rocks and trees around her. A sharp pain seared through her shoulders. She had been grazed. Ignoring it, she scrambled up a slope, branches clawing at her face and arms. Every nerve screamed with exhaustion, yet surrender was impossible. The message had to get through. The climax approached as she neared her destination. The forward command post. Barely a few hundred meters ahead, but she was not alone. Shadows in the tree line multiplied. Enemy reinforcements arrived faster than intelligence had accounted for. It was no longer a mission, it was survival against impossible odds. A sniper's rifle cracked, sending her sprawling behind a large fallen tree. Time slowed, each heartbeat echoing in her ears. Heroic decisions were made in split seconds. She dragged an injured soldier she found in her path, shielding him with her own body, making impossible choices: deliver the message or save a life. Every action risked exposure, yet every hesitation could be fatal. Her boots slipped in the mud, fingers cut and bleeding, lungs burning with effort, yet still she moved forward. The forest seemed alive with the tension of 1,000 unseen eyes, every sound amplified, every shadow a potential threat. Overlay effects heightened the urgency. Maps zoomed in, enemy movements blinking rapidly. Intercepted radio messages crackled, distorted and urgent. A faint countdown on the far command center hinted at a deadline only she could meet. Each detail amplified the tension. The stakes were maximum, the danger omnipresent, the outcome uncertain. Then came the moment no historian could fully explain. In the final stretch toward the command post, she vanished from sight. Some accounts claim she slipped through a hidden path. Others suggest she was captured or ambushed, yet nothing concrete emerged. The envelope was gone, the message delivered or not. Time froze in uncertainty, leaving her fate shrouded in shadow. And then, in a moment no historian could explain, everything changed. The returning soldiers staggered through the forest. Every step a reminder of the night's terror. Mud clung to their boots, soaking their socks and weighing down every movement. Some were silent, eyes fixed on the ground, replaying flashes of fire and smoke, the screams of the wounded echoing in their minds. Others spoke in hushed tones, fragmented stories of impossible feats and narrow escapes. Every story eventually circled back to Hertha, young courier who had carried the mission, the envelope that might have saved them all. Private Hoffman, still clutching a cracked rifle, paused near a collapsed tree trunk. She ran like the wind, he whispered to no one in particular, his voice trembling. 1 second she was there, the next, gone. I swear I saw her cross the open clearing under fire, and the bullets didn't touch her. The others exchanged uneasy glances, a mixture of awe and disbelief etched on their faces. Was it possible for one person to be everywhere at once, guiding, dodging, surviving? Or were they imagining it, desperate to make sense of the chaos? Nearby, Sergeant Lutz tended to a young soldier whose leg had been grazed by shrapnel. The boy's eyes were wide, haunted. I heard her voice. Calling me, he said, voice barely audible over the wind. I turned. She wasn't there, but she saved me. Lutz nodded silently, unable to offer any reassurance. There was no explanation for what they had witnessed, and no words could fill the void her absence had left. Across the battlefield, Small fires smoldered where tents, barricades, and debris had burned. The acrid smell of charred canvas and wood mixed with mud and blood, creating a scent that would linger in memory long after the battle was forgotten. A gentle breeze shifted, carrying with it the faintest whispers from the trees, though whether wind or imagination, no one could tell. Every rustle of leaves made soldiers flinch. Half expecting to see her silhouette emerge from the fog, envelope clutched in hand. Delivering a silent message of hope, officers in the rear worked tirelessly to compile reports. Lieutenant Kranz huddled over maps, tracing the paths of returning squads and enemy movements. Reports were contradictory. Some suggested she had made it through enemy lines. Others claimed she was captured, and a few hinted she had simply vanished. The data offered no certainty, only questions. A classified file labeled "Unknown Operative" referenced a courier who had slipped through enemy patrols undetected, delivering intelligence that had turned the tides, but the operative was unnamed, leaving the officers to wonder if it referred to her. Even civilians near the front lines whispered of sightings. In a nearby village, an elderly resident recounted seeing a figure moving silently through the night, guiding injured villagers away from the advancing patrols. She appeared like a shadow, the woman said, voice trembling. I blinked, and she was gone, a child added, recalling a whisper that warned them of a hidden artillery trap, saving their family. Across the region, similar accounts emerged, each telling of a mysterious female figure who appeared in the dead of night, accomplishing feats no one could fully explain. As daylight strengthened, the weight of absence became more tangible. Soldiers who had survived the battle carried asterisk by mid-morning. The battlefield had settled into an uneasy calm. The fog lifted slightly, revealing a landscape scarred by the night's violence. Muddy craters dotted the terrain where shells had exploded. Broken rifles, helmets, and scraps of uniforms littered the forest floor. The air was heavy with a mixture of damp earth, gunpowder, and the faint metallic Thames of blood. Birds cautiously returned, their tentative songs piercing the silence like hesitant whispers in the rear. Officers and intelligence analysts worked tirelessly to piece together the fragments of the night. Lieutenant Kranz, his uniform streaked with mud and sweat, leaned over a sprawling map, his eyes darting between reports and the marked paths of the surviving squads. Radio transmissions were disjointed, broken by static or sudden interference, making it difficult to track her movements. Every intercepted message raised more questions than answers. Reports of a courier moving ahead of enemy lines. Fleeting glimpses of a shadowy figure, a whispered warning that never reached its intended recipient. None of it fit into a coherent narrative. Meanwhile, analysts examined diaries, letters, and field notes recovered from the front line. One soldier's diary contained a single, haunting line. She was everywhere and nowhere. I swear I saw her save 3 of us at once, impossible as it was. Another letter, found in a satchel near a burned-out outpost, described a fleeting figure moving through the mist, appearing only in the corner of the writer's eye before vanishing without a trace. The cumulative weight of these testimonies created a picture of someone extraordinary, someone who moved beyond the limits of ordinary human perception. Civilian accounts added further layers of mystery. In a small village near the front line, an elderly woman recalled seeing a young woman moving silently across open fields, guiding wounded civilians and frightened children to hidden shelters. She seemed to glide, the woman said, voice trembling. I could not see her face clearly, but I knew she was there to help. Then she was gone before I could even speak to her. Another resident, a young boy, described hearing a warning whispered in the darkness, a voice that saved his family from a hidden mine. Yet when they turned to thank her, there was no one. These accounts, corroborated by several villagers, painted a picture of a figure who was both real and unreal, human yet almost spectral in the command center. Officers debated the significance of intercepted enemy reports. Some suggested she had been captured. Others theorized that she had delivered the message and vanished intentionally. One recently declassified memo hinted at an unknown operative moving undetected behind enemy lines, delivering intelligence in a manner unrecorded in official histories. No name was given, no face described, only actions. Lieutenant Kranz stared at the document, the weight of uncertainty pressing down. Could it be her? He wondered, though the answer remained maddeningly out of reach. Meanwhile, returning soldiers shared fragmented accounts. Some spoke of seeing her cross open ground under fire, impossible to follow with the naked eye. Others claimed she had appeared suddenly beside them in moments of extreme danger, guiding them away from ambushes or providing critical instructions, then vanishing before anyone could respond. Each story added to the growing legend. She was a force of nature, her presence shaping outcomes even in her absence. Yet amidst awe and admiration, fear lingered. The impossible nature of her deeds left questions that gnawed at the minds of those who survived. Had she truly survived the night? Was she captured, lost, or hiding by design? Could one person possess such extraordinary skill and timing, or were their minds exaggerating what they had seen in the chaos of war? Every answer seemed just out of reach, every certainty replaced by doubt. Even the terrain seemed to hold its secrets. Footprints vanished in the mud. Broken branches suggested passage but no clear path, and shadows lingered long after sunrise. Soldiers scoured the fields, the trees, and the forest edges, calling her name, hoping for a response that never came. Some swore they saw glimpses of a figure moving at impossible speed. Others found only silence and the lingering weight of unanswered questions. By afternoon, the story had begun to spread beyond the battlefield. Messengers carried rumors of a ghostly female operative whose courage and speed had saved lives in ways no one could fully explain. Reports reached higher command. She was not merely missing. She had become an enigma, a living mystery whose actions defied conventional understanding. Officers and soldiers alike grappled with the same truth. She had changed the night forever, yet her fate remained shrouded in uncertainty. As reports multiplied and civilian accounts grew, one certainty remained: the forest. The battlefield and the scattered villages all held fragments of her story. Yet the truth of what she had seen, done, and endured that night remained locked in shadow, waiting to be uncovered. Asterisk days bled into weeks, yet the forest remained silent. The battlefield, once alive with the frantic chaos of night combat, had returned to a deceptive calm. Officers continued combing reports, field notes, and intercepted communications, hoping to piece together the fragments of the night. Each discovery only deepened the mystery. One file mentioned an operative who had slipped behind enemy lines, delivering critical intelligence, but the name was redacted, the details vague. Could it be her? Lieutenant Cran stared at the documents for hours, a sinking feeling settling in his chest. Every clue hinted at extraordinary action, yet offered no proof. Decades later, historians and veterans still debated her fate. Letters preserved in archives spoke of courage beyond comprehension. A sergeant who survived the battle wrote, "She carried hope in her hands. We survived because of her, yet we may never know how or why she vanished." Diaries found in distant villages described a fleeting presence that saved lives. Sometimes imperceptible, sometimes shockingly direct. In every account, she appeared as a force that transcended ordinary human limits, moving with uncanny precision through chaos and danger. The forest itself seemed complicit in the mystery. Soldiers and civilians alike swore they glimpsed a shadow slipping between trees or heard a voice carried by the wind, guiding them away from traps or advancing patrols. Some historians proposed the possibility of a covert operation, so secretive that all evidence of her survival or demise had been deliberately erased. Others suggested she had walked into the mist of the forest, disappearing into obscurity by choice. No explanation satisfied all accounts. The legend grew, fueled by eyewitness testimony, archival records, and the imagination of those desperate to make sense of the impossible. Letters from surviving comrades conveyed grief, awe, and confusion. One officer recalled seeing her sprint across an open clearing under gunfire, then vanish into the fog with no trace. Another described her standing atop a ridge, watching over retreating squads like a guardian spirit, then fading into the shadows. Every survivor carried the memory of her presence, a mixture of comfort and despair, hope and unanswered questions. The battlefield had been won. Yet the cost included the disappearance of someone whose courage had defined the night, even enemy reports hinted at. Her extraordinary capabilities, Intercepted communications described a courier moving with near-impossible speed and agility, slipping past patrols and defying capture. Some declassified files suggested she had been taken by enemy forces, but vanished before interrogation. Others implied a deliberate withdrawal orchestrated by Allied intelligence. Her disappearance masked as part of a broader covert mission. Each theory was plausible, yet none could be confirmed. The line between legend and reality blurred with every account. The emotional weight of her disappearance remained palpable. Survivors carried letters, diaries, and oral histories, passing down her story as both cautionary tale and testament to bravery. In campfires, long after the battle, soldiers whispered her name in reverent tones, recounting deeds that seemed larger than life. Civilians in nearby villages continued to tell stories of a shadowy figure who appeared at the darkest hour, delivering aid and vanishing without recognition. Over time, she became something more than a soldier's symbol of courage. It's mystery and the thin boundary between human and myth. And yet, the forest and the battlefield held their secrets tightly. Every step she had taken, every life she had saved, and every danger she had confronted remained locked in shadows. Decades later, historians, archivists, and researchers would stumble across fragments, a diary, a classified memo, a blurred photograph. None offered clarity, only more questions. Who was she? Did she survive? Did she complete the mission? Or had she simply vanished, swallowed by the fog and the forest, leaving behind only whispers and legend? The chilling truth endured. No one could answer with certainty. Every rumor, every story, every fragment of evidence converged on the same conclusion: she had done something extraordinary, and yet she was gone. Perhaps she walked into the fog of war and never returned. Or perhaps she became part of a secret operation so carefully hidden that even time could not reveal it. The forest remained patient, silent, and indifferent, holding its secrets like a tomb, and the truth about what she saw that night is still locked in archives, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover it.